year is 7000 BC. The world is much different from what we know today. This is Central Anatolia. A lion watches its prey with stealthy glances. In the forests, you might see tigers, and by the lake shores, elephants. The only way to survive is to be careful. Very careful. But our hero can now reduce his fears, because he lives in Çatalhöyük, known as the first great city in history. The settlement in the ancient city of Çatalhöyük, located in today's Konya province in Turkey, initially started around 7100 BC, which is about 9,000 years ago, and its population peaked at around 8,000 during its busiest periods. Considering that the population in Anatolia at those times was between 50,000 and 70,000, we can easily say that Çatalhöyük was a megacity for its era. Let's now embark together on a thousands of years old journey into the lives of these ancient people in a world without rules, unjust, but free. When archaeologist James Mellaart discovered the city of Çatalhöyük in 1958, he encountered astonishing findings. Yes, this was the first known city in history, a step that sheds light on the mysterious past of humankind. But neither their lifestyles nor their houses resembled modern life. Imagine a city where there is almost no concept of streets or avenues. All the houses are built adjacently, and to move from one place to another, they must use the roofs. None of the houses have doors. People enter their homes using wooden ladders that hang from holes in the roofs. Did you hear the explosion? Mount Hassan has become active. Can you imagine the fear that primitive humans must have felt at this site? Our ancestors who witnessed this event depicted the volcanic eruption of Mount Hassan on the wall of a house. That's not all. We are now looking at what is considered the first map, the first city plan in human history. A man, or perhaps a woman, whose name has been lost in the pages of history, has left us a story that spans 8,200 years. What did these people believe in? What was their religion? In those times, humankind had not yet defined the concept of death. Something happens and we lay still and decay. Struggling to rationalize death, the people of Çatalhöyük preferred to bury their deceased not far away, but within their homes. The dead were buried under the floors of their homes in the fetal position, with their legs pulled up to their groin, sometimes wrapped in mats or leather, laid on their left side. This way, their connection with their ancestors was not severed. Seeing that the dead were buried with jewelry and personal belongings, it is likely they believed death was not the end. Excavations in a single house have yielded the remains of more than 60 different individuals. Knowing that the floor of your home is a cemetery must not be pleasant. Since the mud brick houses had a short lifespan, people of Çatalhöyük would occasionally demolish their houses to rebuild or relocate. In these cases, the bones of the ancestors were not left behind. At least the skulls would be taken to the new home. You now see vultures consuming headless humans. These depictions show that before the dead were buried in homes, they were left in open areas to decompose. Vultures were part of this process. The human body decays and eventually returns to the soil. If we become soil when we die, and the soil gives us life with its vegetables and fruits, then God must be a woman, because she also brings us into existence from the seeds of a fruit, like the soil producing crops, gives us life with the milk from her breasts. This is why all the goddess figurines found in Çatalhöyük are female. The depiction of the goddess as plump represents both fertility and abundance of food. The goddess figure from Çatalhöyük would later be known as Cybele in subsequent civilizations, then Artemis, and eventually transformed into the Virgin Mary, continuing to exist in the world of human beliefs. This is precisely why what happened in Çatalhöyük did not stay there. This city is the collective memory of humanity and our ancestral city. How did days pass in Çatalhöyük? First of all, there was no central authority here. That is, there were no kings or rulers. There were communally determined rules and an egalitarian, cooperative way of life. No one was superior to anyone else. Only families with stronger physiques and larger numbers had some advantages over others. Relatives lived in neighboring houses. The houses were claustrophobically closed and dark. Lighting and heating were provided by a fire lit under the entry hole in the roof, allowing the smoke to escape through the same hole. However, the constant presence of a fire in the middle of the house and unhealthy living conditions meant that women had an average lifespan of 30 years, while men lived up to 35. Excavations have rarely found human remains that exceeded the age of 40. The heights of people in Çatalhöyük were also much shorter compared to today. Women averaged 4 feet 11 inches, or 150 centimeters, and men 5 feet 5 inches, or 165 centimeters. The main reason for this was a lack of nutrition and lower living standards compared to today. The people of Çatalhöyük engaged in agriculture, cultivating vegetables and grains such as wheat, barley, lentils, and peas. However, the agricultural products were derived from unimproved seeds, so they were not as nutritious and sweet as those we consume today, but rather wild and bitter. Consider that there was no transportation with distant societies, so imagine a life without 99 of the 100 vegetables and fruits we eat today. It was that kind of life. One of the major issues in physical development was intestinal worms. Nearly everyone suffered from the same problem. The lack of food hygiene awareness was a primary cause of intestinal worms. Additionally, there was usually a small, earth-floored section in the houses used as a dump, which also served as a toilet. This increased contact with feces, contributing to the spread of intestinal worms. Such parasites unfortunately slowed the physical development of children. According to archaeological data of all the children born in Çatalhöyük, scarcely any lived past 18. Smoke from the fire burning in the hearth blackened the walls, so every spring the walls were repainted with white clay. On these white walls, people drew their hunting adventures and the animals they encountered. Pictures of hunted cattle and seen leopards were almost in every house. Some walls featured depictions of mocking, laughing, angry, and dancing humans. Look, someone left us handprints. Another eccentric depicted themselves dancing with a leopard. I wonder if they ever thought that someone thousands of years later would see these paintings. Houses could be up to 2 meters high and sometimes consisted of several rooms. Household members usually slept in the same room, though occasionally they could stay in different rooms. However, one fact is certain. If you had lived during that period, you would have known from day one that you would have siblings. Moral standards and sound insulation were not very developed. As unpleasant as it sounds, activities of parents and even neighbors were heard throughout the night. Yet despite all the hardships, these people were happy. Firstly, they lived in a world without money and warfare. Indeed, the people of Çatalhöyük never experienced war. However, this does not mean they were not prone to violence. We know that incidents of violence occurred within groups. Out of 93 skulls found in Çatalhöyük, 25 had traces of attack-related injuries. Disputes over fields, destruction of neighbors' walls were common reasons for these fights. We know from the wounds on the skulls that women were also involved in these incidents. Our ancestors found reasons to cause trouble even in a world without wars. The probable intervention to save a young man of about 19 years old who was injured in a fight is chilling. Currently, officials from Central Anatolia University, conducting the excavations, report that they found a skull from a grave with a circular incision made in it, and an attempt had been made to remove pieces of bone from inside while the young man was still alive. Although they like to fight, there is one distinctive feature of Çatalhöyük. Women and men were almost completely equal. There was no significant social difference between them. They did similar work, ate the same food, and tried to survive together. Some women also went hunting, herded animals, farmed, traded, and produced pottery. Speaking of hunting, they had to be very careful. At any moment, they could also become prey. Back then, the Central Anatolian steppe was as much home to vast forests and wetlands as to large predators no longer present in Anatolia today, such as lions and tigers. Leopards were everywhere. At any moment, one could become prey to wild animals, torn apart by massive bears. Therefore, once they left the city, they had to move in large groups. For those injured during hunting, the likely outcome was death. Even simple wounds could lead to fatal infections due to very limited treatment options. None of these people had ever seen themselves clearly. Seems like a strange and distant concept to us. Their knowledge about their appearance was very limited. There were no modern mirrors back then. They could only see themselves to a limited extent in water reflections and inefficient mirrors made from obsidian. Obsidian, a volcanic rock, was plentifully available through volcanoes and played a significant role in making Çatalhöyük a major city. Traders from other communities in Anatolia would buy products made from Çatalhöyük's obsidian, as well as clay pottery and food items. This trade helped the area grow into a trading hub, and ultimately into a megacity. We do not know what these products were exchanged for. However, in those times, since horses had not yet been domesticated, the traders' only mode of transportation was walking. The roads were tough and filled with predators. Therefore, traders visiting Çatalhöyük would often stay as guests in the homes of the locals. Do not underestimate these travelers. They would bring news from distant lands, new inventions, and supernatural events they witnessed on their journeys, often embellished. Consider how significant their arrival in the city was in a world without internet, television, horses, or even the wheel. These guests would engage in conversations on rooftops during the warm seasons and by the fire inside homes during colder times. Children were particularly eager to listen to the travelers' stories. Storytellers were not only the guests. By the fire, the elderly of the house would also share tales of hunting adventures, journeys, and myths of the gods almost every evening. Perhaps these were the times Çatalhöyük's people enjoyed the most, and of course, dreaming under the stars while sleeping on the rooftops during warm seasons, believing each star was a sign from the gods. If our hero from 9,000 years ago dared to embark on a journey to other lands, he would need 4 things to survive: a now domesticated dog, a weapon for hunting, a water flask, and dried meat. If he didn't fall prey to wild animals, he wouldn't need anything else to journey until the end of his days. This is true freedom. Along the way, he would encounter small villages and even much more primitive people still living in caves. He might see the first people who claimed to be prophets and be a guest of nomadic tribes. Upon reaching the seashore, he would witness a very different landscape because Çatalhöyük was established during a period when the earth became fertile following the warming of the post-last ice age. Due to the melting glaciers, the sea level was 2 meters higher than today. Hence, none of today's beaches existed. But upon his return, he would exaggerate what he had witnessed to his friends and paint pictures on the walls. Unfortunately, since the walls were continuously painted and destroyed, very few paintings have survived to this day. To date, only about 300 paintings have been uncovered in the excavations at Çatalhöyük. So, what happened to these people? They established the first known megacity of history, and after living there for 1150 years, why did they have to abandon their city? The majority of Çatalhöyük's population left around 5,950 BC, right after the city's population peaked at about 8,000. Studies show that the dense population and the houses built right next to each other began to negatively affect life. The congestion increased stress and led to more violence. People became anxious and had to walk much further to find firewood and reach their fields because the nearby forests had been completely destroyed due to uncontrolled logging and fires. Bone examinations show that the people of later Çatalhöyük walked significantly more than those of the earlier periods. Population was also a key factor in the spread of infections and diseases. A third of the discovered bones show signs of various infections. Considering that many also died from accidents before becoming ill, we can say that almost everyone in Çatalhöyük was sick. Additionally, climate change and deforestation led to droughts. The surrounding lakes dried up and desertification began. Thus, the people of Çatalhöyük gradually migrated in families and small groups to various regions of Anatolia. However, their departure was not the end. They took their goddess cults, beliefs, and inventions to their new locations. They built villages with doors and streets. They developed every place they went to. Their dispersion played a significant role in the formation of today's religions and the acceleration of urbanization. They scattered. Children never saw their friends again. Neighbors never saw each other again. Their traces still exist in our veins. Their stories are still the foundation of our social lives. They left us the grandest, most magnificent creation of their time. Even though only 10% has been unearthed so far, Çatalhöyük was listed by the Monuments Foundation in the United States in 2001 as one of the top 100 monuments in the world that must be preserved and among the 30 most valuable monuments that need financial support. It is also on UNESCO's World Heritage List. Who knows what other truths will come to light from beneath the soil? Because this is a city of never-ending mysteries, a sacred city of an ancient people. Çatalhöyük. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe for more adventures, and click the bell so you won't miss out. Quick, easy, and keeps the good times rolling. See you in the next video.